Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Vox Podcast. Michael, Carl Erre, Timothy John Stafford coming at you live from the interwebs, the deep corners of the country, Central Ohio, Northern California. Timothy, how are you today?
I'm good, Michael. How are you?
Nice. I'm doing great. Doggone it, I'm doing great. Seth Erre was down with COVID. He's feeling better, so we're thankful for that. We're in the process of packing our house in Columbus, which is unpleasant. You just moved from
Yes.
how much mileage away was your move?
A
Like
quarter
2 miles?
of a mile.
A quarter of a mile.
Very, very, very short.
But now you own a house.
Yeah, well, I own a large loan.
That's
I'll
true.
own a house in 30 years.
Yes, exactly. And when they show you the what you'll actually pay for the house, it's one of the most heart breaking moments of like,
It makes you think that you are definitely in the wrong business.
yeah.
You're
Totally.
taking how much money from me? Wow.
So we got a whole heck of a lot today, Timothy. First, before we do anything, I want to thank the people that have come on this week to our Patreon and support teams. I mean, it's ridiculous every week with that. What an honor we get to thank new people. So thank you, Kelsey. Thank you, William, and thank you, Ty, for your support and encouragement. And for those of you that are interested, you can do that at voxpodcast.com, and there are links to a place called Tithely, which is great for sort of one-time gifts, although we do have some people that do like regular support there. And then Patreon, if you go to Vox Podcast, if you search Vox Podcast with Mike Erre on Patreon, you can find us there also. So that is we're so grateful for that. And then again, if you aren't interested in or not able to financially participate, man, liking, rating, subscribing, sharing, all of that stuff is super helpful to us too. The big thing, of course, is that we're just grateful to be a part of what's going on, because we benefit most of all. And it's as much as you guys affirm and question and challenge and wrestle, it's such a delight to kind of let a whole group of people in to the things we're learning and wrestling with. Yeah. And like Tim said last episode, there are several of us who are just all throughout the week in a myriad of ways, but through Marco Polo, which is, I'm embarrassed that's the name of the app. We're constantly wrestling and talking and asking and being curious about things, and so it's really just a whole heck of a lot of fun. So today, I've got a couple of emails I want to respond to. We get so much email, and it's phenomenal, and it's almost always incredible. And so I'm hundreds of emails behind, because rarely are they short answers. And so I'm going to try to do a better job of getting to some of these in episodes for people who give us that permission. It's from Julie. And the mask conversation has provoked lots of good conversation. So Julie gave us permission to share this. She said, when I was diagnosed with an allergy to penicillin, the doctor told me that since penicillin is a mold, I need to avoid foods that commonly have molds until I stopped reacting to the penicillin. Apparently, if you hit your allergy threshold, like my reaction to the penicillin, and if you expose yourself to other similar allergens that you normally wouldn't react to, you might start reacting to them, right? You hit a threshold, and then that you might become allergic to other things too. I feel like this is the way it is with loneliness. So she's talking about the mask conversation.
Yeah.
I wondered at the beginning of the pandemic if Westerners that live in extremely individualistic societies already had reached their threshold of loneliness, and any additional isolation or separation would drive them to distraction. And I think the answer to that has clearly been yes. We were already an incredibly lonely culture prior to the pandemic.
Right.
It's almost like we don't have enough meaningful relationships to sustain us through a year or two of relative physical isolation. Physical separation seems to me to be the scratching at the scab of our soul wound, inflicted because we've convinced ourselves or have been convinced by others that we can do life by ourselves. Ironically, I think even married people keep much of their souls to themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So, as I've been listening to friends and family perseverate on their lockdown experiences, I've observed that those who have weathered this crisis have at least one soul-deep connection with another person, even if they live by themselves. And this has caused me to wonder if soul-deep friendships transcend physical solitude. And I thought, boy, I think she might be onto something. Because Zoom's a pain, but I don't feel like I've been lonely.
Yeah.
And some of that is the friendships that I have, and I'm friends with people like all over the country, and distance is the only way we maintain those friendships.
Right.
So I don't know. I just thought, hey, that's a really interesting take on this, and for some, maybe the mask conversation is an extension of that.
Totally.
So I just thought between what Julie was saying and what Kristen said, I'm like, good. Okay, that's good. There are other things at play than just being, I don't know.
No, it seems to be a really important lesson. We've talked about a few things that have been illuminated or revealed through the pandemic.
Yes.
Obviously, a lot of societal things, a lot of political things, a lot of different things like that. But I think this conversation about community and loneliness has been perhaps one that has not. People bring it up, but I don't think, especially my experience of seeing the churches, this has not been addressed. The only way that it's been addressed has been trying to get back to church. But the stuff that she's talking about, I think it's a really profound.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about, like I'm the most extreme introvert that I know by a few miles. I don't mind wearing a mask into a store.
Even even when it's normal.
Yeah.
You might just stick with it. You might just stick with it
I might
forever.
just keep doing it because it allows me to coast through the aisles on my own. I'm totally fine with it. But there is, it's been a hard lesson for me to learn how much I do need other people. Even though what I feel at my core is that I'm at my best when I'm alone.
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting, and the marriage thing, I see that all the time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, marriage certainly is no guarantor of camaraderie or soul connection or whatever. So excellent, Julie. Thank you for that thought. And I love that this has stirred up some sympathetic thoughts.
It's been surprising. It's been interesting that there's been so much further mining of this topic.
Yes, and with such great empathy,
Yes.
which I did not lead with. So I love it. I love it because I'm learning too. So this is from, we'll call him Jeremy, a church planner in Portland, Oregon. And he said it's been hard. In the last month, we found out we're yet again losing some key leaders, and it's wrecking us. Church planning is a really, really hard thing. As I was listening to the episode, I thought it would be great to have a tool to process our reactions with the idea, is this an old creation response or a new creation response? This comes out of the last episode, so I would recommend you listen to that. Would you say the Sermon on the Mount is the primary place to define those new creation responses? Are there other places to consider new creation responses within the Bible? While I've had many years of Bible and theology training in college and seminary, we never talked about this stuff. And over the years of listening to the podcast, I've grown in this and see it as a better way to think. Me too. Me too. So what a great question. So here's something that Gombis, when he and I were talking privately, he does this thing that I've now stolen completely, but it's brilliant. He actually goes through when he's reading Paul, and he maps two, like a Venn diagram. So two overlapping circles, but they overlap just a little bit. And one is kind of old creation responses, and one is new creation responses, or old creation dynamics and new creation dynamics. And so he'll map on those the vice lists that Paul will often give. So Paul will talk about gossip, slander, division, right? Those things go to the old creation dynamic. He'll talk about unity or humility or treating others as Jesus sort of relinquished his rights, that we would relinquish ours and take the place of humility. And you can actually map. And Gambas said he does this kind of as an exercise, and I've started doing it as I'm just in the Bible, and obviously the Sermon on the Mount is the place to start. I just think everything else is commentary on that sucker, right? I mean, that is. So you're absolutely right that the Sermon on the Mount is the example par excellence of new creation dynamics. But I think Paul, the joy has been, because I enjoy reading the Gospels far more than I enjoy reading the epistles. I have read the epistles now differently because I'm on the lookout for when Paul will say things like the wisdom of the world. So then I'm asking, well, what's the wisdom of the world? What's that mean? Because the world there isn't like the wisdom of the other people. It's the wisdom of the old age. Yeah. What's the wisdom of the old age that Jesus confounded, when he died on the cross? I mean, it opens up. So anytime you're reading in Paul things like this present age or the age to come, or flesh and spirit, or light and dark in John's letters, you'll begin to see these patterns sort of emerge that are located around hospitality and humility, and then located around self-centeredness and self-seeking. And power grasping, and it's really interesting then to consider, take that map and then lay it over the church as an institution, and all of the ways we institutionally react to things, and then corporately, because I read those dynamics individually, but that's not how they're meant to be read. Those are corporate dynamics between people and to be embodied in churches. And so then you map it onto a church. Like, how do we treat leadership? How do we view leadership? How do we empower leadership? How do we, where are we setting aside our rights for the sake of the other? Where are we welcoming the other? Where are we, you just start asking these huge, huge questions. And it's super interesting. So it's opened up Paul's letters to me in ways that hadn't been open before. Yeah. So that simple idea of mapping new creation, old creation, and realizing that we kind of stand at the intersection of the two. We're the middle of the Venn diagram. Yeah. We stand at the intersection of the two ages, and that the greatest temptation of the church is to use old creation dynamics to bring about new creation results.
Totally.
It has been incredible how does Paul conceive of himself as a pastor and a shepherd and a leader and a teacher and an apostle, right? You run it through that grid and it's like, oh my goodness, Paul, I don't think Paul would have a social media account where he's boasting about, how the new book he's writing and how hard it is to write his new book. And whatever. I mean, it's fascinating. So Jeremy, you rock. And anyway, that's how I'm doing it. And I would invite you into that too. Just get a big whiteboard and start mapping these. These are dynamics that almost all are corporate.
It's so exciting that there's folks that are planting churches that are asking these questions now.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
It gives me a lot of hope for what could come from And it actually gives me a lot of questions, because you talked last week or 2 weeks ago about tossing out a bunch of leadership books and that kind of stuff. Like, what does it actually mean to lead a church, or is that even a thing? I was thinking about last week with the worship leading. Like, there's just so much power or importance placed upon some of those roles, and I'm curious as to what they really should be or should mean to lead. And I don't know. So, but I think running it through some of those lens or those diagrams or whatever is helpful to figure out what that really means.
And if you're up for a good but challenging read, pick up Gombas's new book, Power in Weakness. And even though he's not using that language
Not
the
from
whole
Amazon,
way,
though.
no, he on his podcast he clearly states his disdain for Amazon over and over and over. But it's this conversation around pastoral ministry. How do we embody pastoring in church leading in new covenant, new creation dynamic? So anyway, wonderful stuff. One last question, and then we'll dive in to the content today. I mean, this is why I just love being a part of this community. I'm constantly pushed to be thinking about these things. Okay, so we'll call this young lady Jennifer. We have Jeremy and Jennifer, who are kind of our stand-in names. And my whole family are Trump fans. I went to an art institute and did a lot of deconstructing politically over the past few years. This past year wrecked me. I felt like I've deconstructed so much that it feels like a bomb went off in my church of beliefs. And now I'm staring at single bricks, trying to figure out which ones are worth putting back together and wondering where the mortar is. What a great image. The only thing I know in my bones is that we should be loving people and supplying safe space for others no matter where they stand in life. I don't think it's any of my business to tell anyone that their lifestyle is wrong. And I think that the LGBTQ plus community needs to hear how much they are loved and made in the image of God now more than ever. Enough of the hate and xenophobia. What I've been meaning to ask is this: how does one reconstruct? How does one even start? I feel so broken, and while I'm sure there are tons more I need to deconstruct, I feel like I need to reconstruct something. You can only survive without shelter for so long.
Boom.
Oh my goodness. But
ladies with the poetic
yes, and I could not the emails she left bounced back, so I reached out twice, and so I don't have her permission, so I'm skipping other things. But I thought the question and the images were so good.
Yeah.
So the first thing I'd want to say is I'd want to ask our audience. I think it'd be super interesting to hear from you, audience. What are practices, books, things, people that have been helpful in reconstructing? I would love to hear that. There are loads of resources out there about deconstructing. What are things that have been helpful to you for reconstructing? So, Vox, what do you think about that? Secondly, Tim, what do you think, man? You've been in the middle of this for quite a while. What would you say?
What would I say if I'm trying to rebuild?
Yeah.
What I've learned, I think, has been you start with that cornerstone, and everything else I'm being very patient with. And I mean cornerstone by, the Sermon on the Mount series was very helpful for me, because while we went through that, and I try to reiterate this often on the podcast, that I'm processing and learning in real time, just like someone sitting in the car. Often I will forget that I'm recording and I'm just listening and trying to but like with the things like the Sermon on the Mount, I have pushed all that debris, all those bricks, all that mortar, I pushed them all aside, like everything out. And I'm sitting on an empty foundation with that one cornerstone and trying to figure out very intentionally how I put those bricks back together. Or maybe I'm not even putting bricks back together, because I think that, just to keep running with this analogy, my experience has been that there's too much confining structure, exclusive structure, or I don't know. I'm so bent on this communal this communal idea and the way that Jesus framed it, and the way we are as human beings, the way we've been created. So I am, my reconstruction has been very slow because I'm testing everything. And even the example that you just gave of the old and new, the Venn diagram thing, I think I've been doing that unintentionally with stuff for a while now, where I'm just like, I'm taking my time and I'm trying to process everything through Jesus and just be like, does this match? Nope. See ya. Does this match? Nope. See ya. And then, the good fruit stays, the bad fruit gets tossed. And there's a lot of bad fruit I found in the rubble of all that stuff. So
yeah,
I think it can feel daunting and disorienting for sure, but I still have a lot of faith. My deconstruction didn't diminish my faith in Jesus. It diminished my faith in the church.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm kind of having fun. I'm excited. Like the conversations that I'm having with people, I'm really excited for what this looks like. I'm excited for the questions that come in, like the worship leader last week and the question this week, and the ladies leading with empathy, and I don't know. All that stuff is very encouraging to me.
I think that's really, really well said, Tim. And to Jennifer, if you're listening, first of all, the image you give of "I can only live without shelter for so long," I mean that's a haunting image for me. I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that I was 29, and I was in seminary, and I was a pastor, and I went to a retreat with my college students up at Forest Home Conference Center in California. And this guy got up and he said, "Hey, my job is to lead Christians back to Christ." And so his talks were just about how beautiful Jesus was. And something clicked there, and it's re-clicked at other times, like when I read The Divine Conspiracy by Dallas Willard, or The Jesus I Never Knew, an old book by Philip Yancey, or when I've been around certain kinds of people where I came away from that experience with a centeredness that was new to me. Instead of looking at the rubble, I mean, and there is so much. I open up Twitter every day, and today I'm reading about what was found on this kid's computer, Josh Duggar, from 19 Kids and Counting, a show that Justy used to watch years ago. And it's horrifying, and you're wondering about the culture that kind of grows up that allows this sort of thing, even after it's been identified previously, to continue growing. I mean, it's maddening. And the only thing I come back to, is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I mean, that's all I have. That's literally, and John confuses the crap out of me. So I put John, I just set John over here. For me, I just read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John over and over and over and over and over. I just read them over and over and over, chapter a day, over and over and over and over and over. And it is the only way for me I've stayed sane. And exactly what Tim has said. When you get to the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus embodies what it is to actually be Christian, right? I mean, what it is to follow. And throw out everything that doesn't feel like that, or look like that, or sound like that. And do it unapologetically. This is not the time to be tolerating. When you're rebuilding, it's not the time to be tolerating nonsense. It's the time to dig for something that's real. And for me, that's the sermon is where I go. Luke's retelling of the Jesus story is super compelling to me because he's constantly chasing the lost sheep of Israel and those outside the kingdom of Israel. And he's having to justify to the religious leaders his attempts to bring and welcome the marginalized and the notoriously sinful of his day. And so, then from there, from that place, and that takes, I mean, that I have to go back there and sit there a lot. I can then begin to venture into Acts, and Acts is one of the most helpful books for me, because without Acts, I can't make sense of Paul. And so Luke, Acts, that combo, that's kind of my center about
Dr. Luke Chronicles.
Yes, Dr. Luke, medicine man. That was Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, just in case anyone missed that. Very, I don't know. Is that an 80s or 90s reference? I don't even know.
I don't know. I would say too, like what has been one of the most helpful things for me has been to find a community, even a small one, of people that are sorting through the debris also, and are trying to everyone's trying to look towards Jesus and reposture and figure out what this is supposed to look like. So I feel like I'm having those conversations. Mike mentioned that we have them, every day or so through text message and that kind of stuff. But I also have people here in my town that I'm trying to process through all this stuff with, and we're constantly just like, what is church? What does it mean to be a community of people gathered around that are trying to pursue this new creation stuff? And and if you don't have that, if you're in a place where you're new or fresh, we still are trying. We have that micro community Facebook group, and micro communities got obviously demolished we just started it right at the beginning of the pandemic. But I still have a lot of hope in that we can help pull people together. I know everyone's all zoomed out, but just like we talked about with the loneliness thing, I tried to reboot the micro communities and have people from all over just log into Zoom together just to talk and to, I don't know, encourage one another. But I think that there's places to find and cultivate community with like-minded folks.
Yep, I agree. So nothing fancy. I find that I'm not a huge pray for hours long, but I've been praying the Lord's Prayer now for a year and a half, and that has been wonderfully reconstructing for me. To pray that, to sit in that, we talked about it in previous episodes if you want more, but please respond to us. We'd love to hear more from you about what you think. What could work for you? I mean, there are people that have reconstructed using art, nature, music, film, literature. I
use all of those.
Yeah, totally. My reconstruction and deconstruction both are, they're constantly happening. They're just ongoing.
Absolutely.
And I call that discipleship, right? That's not deconstructing anymore. That's just what it means to follow Jesus. This is what Jesus does to his followers, and he did it in the first century, and he does it today.
Yep.
And he's so gracious that he receives us however jacked up we're showing up to the party.
I wish there was a better word for that, because reconstruction has a finality to it, and I just don't think it's ever final.
No. At least it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
At least it shouldn't be final. And so the things that are helpful to me now, in some ways, look like the things that were helpful early on, but they come from an entirely different place, emotionally, spiritually, whatever. And so they fuel and open up different sort of imaginings that, I find unbelievably compelling. I've never been more invigorated to pursue Jesus than I am now, because the contrast is so stark, that I'm just sitting and looking, and then I look into my own heart. I just look at the Duggar kid, and without going into my darkness, and my lust and my pursuit of the forbidden or whatever. It's, Jesus drives us right back there. So it's not just a reconstruction so that I could withstand how crazy Christians are, but it's a reconstruction that's not based on the purity codes that I was raised up believing were the defining marks of discipleship.
Yeah. Yeah, breaking those cycles, like last week's episode, breaking out of that sin that consumes, or the active things we get locked into that consume, and you just sit in that all-consuming cycle, breaking that cycle.
Totally.
When I would work in the prison too, we always had that when I was working on a documentary in there, we had the phrase that we were always saying: hurt people,
Yeah.
but healed people, heal people.
Yeah.
And this idea of breaking cycles. And I was thinking about this in regards to last week's episode too, with the sins of the father carried down to the son, and looking at the idea of how you were defining sin on the last episode and what that looks like generationally for those cycles to hand down, right? Not like being judged or being disciplined or whatever because of the sins of your father, but being caught in those cycles.
That's right.
Was reframing a lot of that too, because that takes away some of the angry God that like punishes generations. It's like these generations get caught in a tumble cycle that has to be broken.
Right.
Like someone has to be healed to break that cycle and heal.
That's right.
And then help heal other people. It's illuminating a lot of stuff, Mike.
We are the Illuminating. So we got heavy stuff today, buddy.
Oh boy.
Because there's another whole layer we haven't even touched to the problem and the solution. And that is the powers, the principalities.
Oh boy.
I know. And so let me give a couple of disclaimers right off the top. All right?
I'm going to call Michael Heiser and get him on the phone real quick.
Seriously. First, the big disclaimer is a lot of this I am in the middle of learning myself. So I'm going to state it more confidently because it's new to me. And so my statements of it are going to sound like I'm farther along than what I am. So I'm not. This is stuff that's been brewing the last several years, but like I just have dedicated 2 weeks to it, and I'm like, oh my goodness. Secondly, I'm channeling loads of people here, much smarter than me. Some of the people I'm channeling, not surprising, NT Wright, a guy named Greg Boyd, who wrote a book called God at War in the late 90s that was, and then he wrote another one called Satan and the Problem of Evil, that introduced me to some of these categories. Tim Mackey, the Bible Project, did some stuff on the Divine Council, but they were channeling a guy named Michael Heiser. And I had heard of Heiser prior to that and had read a book of his called The Unseen Realm. Yeah. There's a guy named Gregory Beale that I've referenced before who's done a lot on Eden. John Walton has done a lot on Genesis 1, among other scholars. There's some other Old Testament scholars that I'm kind of leaning on too. But so I'm channeling a bunch of stuff. All right, so to be clear, I'm channeling. And I'm channeling more
Frank Peretti and
Neil Anderson, and that's my third disclaimer. I grew up in a very, 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 very conservative religious environment, but was brought into by very safe, healthy people, a more robust spiritual warfare sort of mindset. And that, I remember I would have, I was an investment banker out of college, and I was thinking and praying about becoming a youth pastor, and I would have these demonic dreams where some evil voice would show, like would present itself in my answering machine, and which is, that's a callback to before cell phones. And I would feel oppressed, and I would feel like something was sitting on my chest, and I couldn't breathe or swallow or move. I had experiences where, like, another pastor and I were called to a house where things were happening in the house, and we were invited just to pray over the house, and like there was this prayer that the guy that was kind of leading it was doing. It was very, like, it was a formula, and the words were very important and very specific. And there was this piece of furniture that had been imported from somewhere that was really evil looking. And I don't know, we just like put that outside in the garage, and then these weird things in the house went away. I have no idea if that's real or not. I was part of a couple of times where it looked like somebody was demonized, and there are a couple of very specific instances where there were physical reactions that were just not.
Yeah.
It was not mental. It didn't feel like it was mental illness, although it could have been. But there was something provoked and provoking that was going on. And so I come from, I've certainly been open to the idea that there are demonic spirits and that realm is real, and that there's another team on the field, as our vineyard brothers and sisters like to say. But that hasn't explained for me a lot of Paul's thinking. And Gombis. Oh my goodness. So Gombis has a chapter. He wrote a book called The Triumph of Ephesians. Is that what it is? Dang it. What's it called? The Triumph of God. Anyway, look it up. He's also got a chapter in his book Power and Weakness on the powers, but it's like the triumph of Ephesus, the triumph in Ephesians, the triumph of Ephesus, maybe. What do you got?
Nothing yet.
Okay, perfect. Anyway.
Everything's working slow today.
Including my brain, evidently.
Yes.
You know what? I just downloaded it again on Kindle.
The Drama of Ephesians?
The Drama of Ephesians, yes.
The
subtitle.
In the Triumph of God.
Yes. So he has a whole chapter, but it's all throughout the book on kind of the apocalyptic mindset. So yes, Gombis, of course. And so when I've been wrestling through, okay, what's wrong with the traditional conception of sin, salvation, judgment, wrath, heaven, hell, and it's not just what's wrong with it, but it's like what's missing. And then when you add the missing stuff in, you just get a different story almost entirely.
Yeah.
And one of the things that has been missing is any real conception, just like we saw with hell, right? Mm-hmm. Total misconceptions about hell. Well, there's nothing in that story that takes like the powers and principalities seriously. It's just, or if it does, it makes them all individual, that there are demons literally fighting for my soul. Mm-hmm. And that spiritual warfare is this, our technology didn't work before we were trying to record. And the joke was, well, it must be, satanic attack. And so I've been exposed to categories of thought that are much bigger, broader, and I think more biblical, that don't necessarily negate the other stuff, but they do call it into question in some ways. So anyway, that's a ton of disclaiming. It'll take us at least 2 episodes to go through all this.
All right.
I don't even know, because I don't want to do another 1.5 hour episode, and we're 40 minutes in. So we'll see how far we get. So all that is to say, here's where I'm at and can be absolutely shaped, but there's enough that has converged from all kinds of different sources that I'm like, ooh, this feels sturdy. Yeah. There's something here to it, and I buy it. So it's not that I don't buy it. No, I buy it, but I'm still new. And so what I'm doing now is I'm reading the authors that the people I quote read. Okay. So what really got me into Jesus studies was when I started looking at N.T. Wright's bibliography, and then I was reading the scholars that he was reading and interacting with. And that just opens up like gobs of stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's where we are in this current setting. That's a lot of disclaiming. My goodness. All right. So let's start in Genesis 1.
All right. That's a good place to start.
Yes, shocking. And I'll do my best with this. The part of the hard thing in Genesis is that they conceive of the cosmos, or cosmos as I pronounce it, so much differently. You know, we when we talk about the earth, the planet, we see it as a sphere surrounded by space. The ancients saw it as a disk surrounded by water that rested on pillars. And so when we get into Genesis 1, we're dealing with that framework, that sort of cosmology. And obviously there are questions then about, well, if they're wrong about that, then what about the other stuff? And those are very legitimate questions. But what I'm going to try to do is to have us hear and encounter Genesis 1 as you might have encountered it if you were ancient Near Eastern. There would be clues that you would pick up on, and there's a picture that's being painted that I don't think we can move out of until we understand that picture. You know what I mean? It's like, once we get the picture, then we can talk about the picture. Yeah. But let's get the picture first. Mm-hmm. So the picture is kind of it's 3 tiers, 3 levels of cosmos, and so if you envision the earth as a disk surrounded by water, above and below, that image will guide us here as we go through Genesis 1. So I'm literally going to read the whole chapter and comment on it. So lots of Bible today, kids. Giddy up. And threads that we will not see again until next episode. All right. So if I stop to point something out and it seems super random, there's something further down the road that's coming that references back to this. All right. So I'm working today, Tim. I'm working.
I already have questions.
Oh, exactly. Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, the first phrase, in the beginning, we did a whole podcast on that because it actually means when God started creating, he began by. So it isn't, and some people actually take the first sentence to be the creation story. He created the heavens and the earth. Right there in verse 1. And then the rest of Genesis 1 is about the creation of the land. Yeah. We're not going to go into that, but I just wanted to note that even the first phrase is not in the beginning. It's when God started creating, he.
Right. I love that the Bible just starts off right away, super complex.
Totally. and then the word for God here is interesting. In chapter 2, the word for God is Yahweh, his covenant name, revealed in Exodus and obviously known by the editors and writers of Genesis. But in Genesis 1, it's the word Elohim. Elohim is how you would say it. And Elohim is, it can function as a name, but it's a category title. It's like the word human. I can talk about my friend Tim, who's a great human, and mean one human specifically. But human, if I use it, refers to a category of entities. Right. Now, this is true of Elohim. So, and Elohim is a plural word. Interesting. When it ends in im, it's plural. And so, Elohim, singularly, there's a singular verb after this that creates bara, and so what you have is a category title. In the plural form that create, there's a singular verb of creation. In other words, it's not a bunch of Elohim creating; it's just one. The Elohim or Elohim creates. Great. Elohim is going to come back though because and this is a preview for next episode. There are more than one Elohim,
right?
And that's where we're going to get some funky stuff. In the Old Testament, there are other Elohim, but Yahweh is always distinguished from them. So the Jewish declaration that there's only one God is true, but there are many spiritual beings.
Yeah.
So Elohim just means of the class of spiritual being.
Oh man.
So when God is like the Lord of hosts, the hosts turn out to be the other Elohim. And he will be distinguished from them by like he is the Lord of lords, or he is the highest of all the gods, or he is God most high. And so because he created the others. Now I'm previewing stuff we're going to get to. This isn't in the text yet, but I'm just drawing attention to this word Elohim that we're going to spend a lot of time exploring in the next episode. So in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Heavens here just means the sky, and the earth just means the land, the ground. All right, nothing more significant than that. Now the earth was formless and empty, and these two words are really, really important because they define what we're going to do for the next 6 days. Formless and empty, or wild and waste, is another very popular translation. Means
wild and waste, as I said.
Waste, yes. That the earth is unformed, unordered, and uninhabited. It's empty and it's formless. Okay, and the spirit, darkness, was over the surface of the deep. Again, here's waters. These chaotic waters, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. All right. Now, again, just drawing quick attention, heavens and earth are two realms that we're going to start encountering in a little bit. Formless and empty is unformed and unfilled. And what God's going to do for the rest of Genesis 1 is he's going to form and fill. The first 3 days he's going to form by separating. So he's going to separate. In the first day, he's going to separate light and dark. Second day, he's going to separate water from water. The third day, he's going to separate water from land. And then the next 3 days, if formless dealt with the first 3 days, empty is going to deal with the next 3 days. So he's going to fill each of these realms with inhabitants, so that the earth is no longer formless and void, formless and empty, wild and waste. It's now ordered and filled.
Yep.
All right? So that sentence defines what he's doing in this panel. The days are grouped together in two sets of three, with the seventh day obviously standing dramatically apart. So God is going to separate, and it's fascinating. He makes he speaks 10 times over the course of the chapter. Over the course of those days. There are 8 acts of him making something, because 2 of the days, day 3 and day 6, there's a double creation. But the number 7 is the number that's all over the place. There are 7 days. There are 7 Hebrew words in the first sentence. There are 2 times 7 Hebrew words in the second sentence. In the sentence about the 7th day, there are 3 lines of 7 Hebrew words. I mean, it's just like this. This is brilliant, but it's not. This is not some abstract, slung together, weird sort of poetry. This is like incredibly detailed. Every word matters. Yep. There's a rhythm and a tempo to it. So it's not just this haphazard thing that's like, hey, there's this ancient tradition that we carried with us. No. This was put together brilliantly. All right. So we're going to start forming. So on day number 1, he said, let there be light. And there was light. God saw the light was good. He separated the light from the darkness, and he called the light day and the darkness night. There was evening, there was morning the first day. So God here separates the light from the darkness. Okay, that becomes important in day 3. So there's this realm of light and dark that's created, right? And that we don't know this yet, but those light and dark, that realm will then begin to move. It will order time for us, right? Light and dark orders time for us, periods of darkness and periods of light. So that's day 1. The second day, God separates the waters. So picture the deep, and then picture God splitting the waters vertically, so that there are waters above and waters below, and space is made for something in the middle. All right? Now, he separates the waters by introducing something called a vault. It's the Hebrew word is rakia, or old translations will have firmament, which is a great Bible word. The firmament. So let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water. So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above the vault. All right, so it's kind of like a snow globe dome is what the vault is. All right, and it was so, and God called the vault sky, and there was evening and there was morning. Now the ancients would say, when you look up to the sky, the reason the sky is blue is because the sky is clear and it's holding back the waters. That's why it's a blue sky. So we're still surrounded by waters, but there's this snow globe thing that kind of appeared in the middle of the waters, right? And it's if you picture the half globe over a flat disc, then what you've got is the vault, the sky, right? The firmament, which is such a fun word to say. So in day 2, you separate light and dark. Day 2, you have the separation of the waters. All right. Day 3, you have God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered in one place, and let dry ground appear." God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. And then there's a double creation here on day number 3. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation." And then it goes through the various seed-bearing plants that reproduce according to their kind. And this is what happens on the 3rd day. So what was previously formless or wild and chaotic, there's order. There's 3 realms that have been created. The light and dark realm, this vault that now separates the waters above from the waters below, and then in the middle of the waters above and the waters below is land.
Yeah.
Okay? Makes sense so far?
Firmament.
All right, now what God is going to do is fill each of those realms. All right? So Genesis, the first 3 days, we're forming. Next 3 days, we're filling. Forgive me if I'm overmaking the point. So on the 4th day, let there be lights. And the word here is lamp. Let there be lamps, like menorahs. It's the same word that's used for like the light in the lamp in the tabernacle. Let there be lights in the vault of the sky, in the rakia, to separate the day from the night. Now, it's interesting here that the lights, in day 1, God separated the light from the dark. Now, these lamps are given the authority to separate the light from the dark.
Yeah.
All right. Now, just wait till you hear the word that's used. He says, "Let there be lights in the vault of the sky." Remember, in day 1 he said, "Let there be light." Now it's "let there be lights in the sky, in the vault of the sky, to separate the day from the night. Let them serve as signs or symbols to mark sacred times, days, and years, and let them be lights in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth." And it was so. God made 2 great lights, or great lamps, the greater light to govern the day and the lesser lamp to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the vault of the sky to give light to the earth, to govern. All right? This is a royal rule word. To govern the day and night, and to separate light from darkness. Now, who separated light from darkness in day 1? God did.
God.
Yes. So now the lights are separating light and darkness, and they're invited to govern the day and night. That's interesting. Yeah, you're smiling. You can see where this train is headed. So that's the 4th day. All right. So you have the moon, sun, and stars, which were worshipped in other cultures, which is fascinating. There's this polemic going on here where the gods of the other nations, like Egypt, obviously worship the sun god. Here in Israel's telling of the story, those are all created. Yeah. Those are all created things. The creator God stands behind all of them. So we're going to come back to that because this verse here is super, super important. But we're just noticing on the 4th day he creates these lights. On the 5th day, he fills the sky and the sea. All right, so you have realm 1, the realm of light and dark, the realm of rakia, the vault, right? Now there are lights that govern and separate. Then we have these waters, right? They're separated in day 2. Now their waters are going to be filled. So birds actually fill because they fly closest to the waters above.
Are you
and
sure
sea
it's not
creatures.
aliens?
It could be aliens too. I mean, I'm more open to that than ever based on the internet. And then obviously fish swim in the waters below.
Yeah.
And so God fills on the 5th day. The waters teem with creatures. The sky is full of creatures. Then on the 6th day, he does another double creation. So on the 6th day, he says, let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, wild animals according to their kinds, livestock according to their kinds. God saw that it was good. Then he said, let us make humanity. The us there is something we're going to come back to, of course. Let us make humanity in our plural image, which we're going to come back to, of course, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and over the livestock. So the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, the livestock, right? So the waters above, the waters below, and the land. That's where the humans are ruling. But this rakia, this vault, this other thing where the lights are, that's governed by the lights.
Yeah.
That separate light and dark. And then God says, I give you every seed-bearing plant. So on the 6th day, you have double creation of animals and then humanity. And then we're tying back to the 3rd day by giving them the plants that were created in the double creation on the 3rd day. All right? Then it says, God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. There was evening and there was morning the 6th day. All right? Now, one of the things that I'd never noticed before was the correlation between the images that were to rule over the land and the seas and the lights that were to govern the day and the night. They're each invited to rule a realm. So even though we have 3 realms that are now full, there are 2 different realms of authority. So there are these parallels between the beings, the lights that govern day and night, and they separate, right? Which is what God was doing. And now you have, and they're called signs, which is symbols. They're pictures of something else. They're a partial reality that points to another reality. All right, that's fascinating. They're called symbols. Yes. Humans are called images, right? And then our job. So the symbols govern the day and night, and they separate light from darkness, which is what God had done. The humans are images that now rule over the waters above, the waters below, and the land. All right, Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, that's new to me. That was like, oh, that's really interesting. And the symbol bit leads to a fascinating discussion about did the Israelites believe that the sun, moon, and stars were spiritual beings?
Right.
Because what we're trying to argue. Because listen to this. I mean, the thing that's so funny is like the creation story ends, Genesis 2, verse 1. Thus the heavens and earth were completed in all their vast array. Now, vast array isn't the best way to translate that. It actually is, were completed in all their various hosts. So hosts of heaven, the Lord of hosts, those refer to other spiritual beings. Yeah. Okay, so the idea is that we've now we've taken 6 days to fill 3 realms, and then to form and then fill 3 realms. But then there's God has delegated rulership to the lights and to the humans. Right? Yeah. God has delegated some authority. Now, we're not told at this point in the story anything about this. And in English, we obviously I've always just read right past this and we're like, well, yeah, of course. The one of the key points is that the stars are symbols in the same way that humans are images, so that there's some sort of delegated thing going on. And then when the writer says, and they were completed in their vast array, that's actually, they were completed with a wide variety of hosts. Like there's this sense that even though it's pictured vertically above and below language, there are these two realms of authority.
Yeah.
And then we get to other places where the lights are referred to as beings. So like in Job 38. So Elohim obviously was a category. And one of the places where other Elohim are referenced, the phrase will be used, the sons of Elohim.
Yeah.
And or it'll be translated the sons of God. Mm-hmm. And that phrase is never used of humans. That phrase is always used of other spiritual beings. So notice this phrase from the book of Job. Tell me, where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you know. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footings set, or who laid its cornerstone? While the morning stars sang together and the angels shouted for joy. Now, these are parallel lines. So the morning stars are usually the brightest planets, and the angels shouted for joy. The angels, the word here is the sons of Elohim. And so there's an equating of the morning stars with the sons of Elohim. And we see this also in Deuteronomy. Oh my goodness. So I know. I'm losing my voice. I don't know if I'm making any sense. I'm channeling smart people. In Deuteronomy, the Hebrews are warned not to make any form and worship that form as if it were a reflection of Yahweh.
Yeah.
So Moses says, you saw no form of God of any kind the day the Lord spoke to you at Mount Oreb out of the fire. Therefore, watch yourselves carefully so that you do not become corrupt and make for yourselves an idol, an image of any shape, whether formed like a man or woman, or any animal on earth, or any bird that flies in the air, or any creature that moves along the ground, or any fish in the waters below. And when you look up to the sky and see the sun, moon, and stars, all the heavenly host, do not be enticed to bow down to them and worship them, because these things God has appointed to the nations under heaven. Okay, now, a couple of things here. First of all, again, the heavenly array or the heavenly host is used synonymously with sun, moon, and stars. Okay. And then secondly, there is a reference to the heavenly host being appointed to the nations. And that is why you shouldn't worship them. They've been appointed to the nations. So this actually shows back up in Deuteronomy 32, a verse we'll look at next week. But what all I'm trying to say now is that in the book of Genesis, you have, in Genesis 1, you have just these clues. You have God being called Elohim. You have us and our in reference to God doing singular things.
Yeah.
You have where he creates, or let us make God or the humans in our image. And then you have these lights that rule and govern as symbols, and these humans who rule, subdue, and fill as images. And you're asking, okay, so what are they symbols of? Well, yeah. I mean, think about it. They're illuminated and they move. And so not surprisingly, and I'm not dogmatic at all on this point, but not surprisingly, I think if you were to ask the ancient Israelites, are these the sun, moon, and stars? Are these planets, or are they beings? And they would say yes, because they're symbols.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They point to something else. Now, I don't know if they would say that or not, but all that I'm reading seems to indicate that sun, moon, and stars served as signs and symbols of something bigger, and that they were comfortable equating the two.
Yeah.
And who knows where else we can go from that. But the image seems to be this vast array. The heavens and the earth were completed in their vast array. When we begin, the earth and the sky, the heavens and the earth, they're just formless and empty. When we end, heavens and earth they're filled with inhabitants.
Yeah.
And there are two realms, even though there are three realms described. The one realm of the Rakia, the day and night realm, that even though it was made on day 2, that's governed by these spiritual beings. And then the sea, the skies above, or the seas above, which is the sky, the waters below, and the land are governed by these images called humans. All right, so that's the picture that we get in Genesis 1, verse, through the end of like 2:4, I think is where it is. Now, in Genesis 3, and this is the last point we'll make, but it's a juicy one. In Genesis 3, and this is from Heiser, in Genesis 3, we meet a serpent. All right, so let me read the account. Boom. When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. Now, this pattern, when something was seen to be good and then it was taken, is going to come back in Genesis 6, which is actually an account. The inverse account of Genesis, the fall of Genesis 3, is actually the inverse account of the fall of the Elohim. Which, oh my goodness. All right. She took, so when she saw the fruit of the tree was good, she took some and ate it. She gave some to her husband who was with her. He ate it. Then the eyes of both of them were opened. They realized they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together. Now, introducing that decision, we meet a serpent, right? In verse 1. The serpent was more crafty than any of the wild animals the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden? Now, we're very, most of us are very familiar with this sort of interchange. The question has always been, all right, really? A talking snake? Really? Heiser's point is that in the biblical imagination, the heavens and the earth overlap. And they overlap in temples. They overlap in high places or mountains. And Eden was a heaven and earth place. Mm-hmm. Eden was not the earth, right? Eden, the invitation of the first image bearers was to spread Eden over the earth. Adam and Eve were not the first people made. There were people already on the earth. They were invited to take Eden and expand it.
Yeah.
All right, to cover the earth. All right, that was the invitation. Yes. And Eden was on top of a mountain. All right, so later, like Isaiah and Ezekiel refer to it as a mountaintop, and it makes sense if there was a river that flowed through Eden and then split at the bottom into 4 different rivers that watered the nations. So this is a heaven and earth space. And whenever you're in heaven and earth spaces, like we get glimpses of these in all the throne room scenes, right? In Daniel or Isaiah, Ezekiel, anytime you have an heaven and earth scene, when someone from the earth is brought into kind of the space of the heavens, it's God pictured as a king on a throne with a court, a royal court. And God being surrounded by other spiritual beings. Now, some of these beings are called cherubim. What are they called? Cherubim? Oh, dang it.
Seraphim and cherubim.
Cherubim. I had it right. It just sounded funny. Cherubim. And usually they're amalgamations of a bunch of creatures all put together. And they represent, they're like a land creature, a fish creature, and a sky creature all kind of wrapped into one. And so there had to have been cherubim in the garden, because remember, God puts 2 there to guard the way back into Eden, right?
Right. Yep.
Now, the other spiritual beings that we read about are called seraphim or seraphim. I don't know how you pronounce it. Seraphim. And they, so we meet them in Isaiah chapter 6, all right? In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord high and exalted, seated on a throne, and the train of his robe filled the temple.
Yes.
Above him were seraphim. Each with 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. Now, this is from Mackey. I don't know where he got it, but I looked it up and he's right. The word for seraphim means snake. It's just the word for snake.
Okay.
In fact, it means fiery serpent, if you want to be really literal about it. So, and in fact, so they don't put snake in there, right? Which is what the word is. The word literally means serpent or fiery serpent or snake. All right, that's the word. Now, there are other words for snake that are used, but this is a word that just means a snake. Instead, they take the Hebrew letters and like turn it into English. And so the Hebrew word is seraph. Here we get seraphim or seraphim or whatever. And but what's fascinating is these were snakes, right? These were in the shape of snakes. So if you're somebody who reads the Bible, the Old Testament, the Hebrew scriptures a lot, and you meet a snake in a freaking heaven and earth place like Eden, all right, who can talk, think, act, and will.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So Heiser's going to argue, hey, that just isn't random. That's a spiritual being who is tempting the humans into rebellion. And we'll find out more about this class of spiritual beings later. But that if you've read forward and you realize there are serpents around the throne of God, then to read about a serpent in the garden isn't like, oh, where did the serpent come from? Or why is it talking? Or why is it thinking? Or why is it reasoning? Or how did it know the commands of God? Right? And why would he listen to it if it's never seen it before?
Right.
Right?
So the word for serpent that speaks to Eve is the seraphim.
No, it's a different word. But there are multiple words that just mean snake.
Right.
So yes, and I looked that up. It's a different Hebrew word that has its own story. But the point Heiser's making is that Eden was a heaven and earth place that would have been populated by humans and spiritual beings.
Yeah.
And that the serpent image was stock ancient Near Eastern image for being around the throne of a ruler.
Yeah.
This was used in other cultures, but here it is in Isaiah, and the our English translations evidently have been afraid to just call it a snake, like it was a fiery serpent who had wings.
Yeah.
Right? So 3 pairs of wings. So, which is fascinating. And so and in Genesis, there's this motif that happens over and over and over where disguised people deceive other people. Right?
Yeah.
So you have like Jacob and Esau. Mm-hmm. You have Tamar and Judah. Tamar dresses up and deceives Judah. Joseph deceives his brothers by dressing differently. So there's this motif of deception, going on throughout the thing. And so there is, the deception would have been that here's an angel of light. Here's one of the good spiritual beings,
right,
leading the humans into rebellion, which is fascinating because here an Elohim is leading the humans into rebellion, a woman. And in Genesis 6, the Elohim see human women, and that causes them to rebel. When they saw the human women were good, they stepped in and took, which is ridiculous. Oh my goodness. So we'll get more into that next episode. This is enough ridiculousness for one freaking episode. All right? Good Lord. There's some Bible Project stuff. Gombus has got some stuff. Like I said, McKnight, Michael Heiser. I mean, and the question, hold on to the question, is this real? Hold off on that for a second.
Yeah.
Because we want to tell, or at least see, the story the Bible is actually telling.
Yeah.
Right? And so let's just hold off. See, that, to me, that makes so much more sense than a serpent that used to have legs and talked. Right?
Yeah.
That makes way more sense if this was a heavenly creature in God's court. And it actually comports very nicely with other things we hear about this great leader of angels that had fallen.
Right.
And it makes sense of the punishment that God gives the serpent, right? Because otherwise you're like, why is crawling on the ground punishment? Well, if you had freaking wings.
Six wings, yeah.
Right? And you were used to like jetting around, and then all of a sudden, so if you were a being that had wings, and then you hear your punishment is, cursed are you above all livestock and wild animals. So you've just been thrown down from the spirit realm to the land. You will crawl on your belly, and you will eat dust all the days of your life. You have gone from wanting the highest position to now being at the lowest.
Yeah.
And then there's the super enigmatic, and I will put enmity between you and the woman.
Right.
And between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. Ooh. Which, we have all sorts of thoughts about. But all that is to say, that's enough for now. We're just into prehistory, right? This is the mythic prehistory of Genesis 1 through 11.
Right.
We're going to hit chapter 6 in the Nephilim next week.
Heyo.
And then we're going to get into the Psalms, where there are now references of God meeting with the small g gods, with the other Elohim.
Good Lord.
In their fallen state. And that then will lead us into the New Testament, where Paul will begin to talk about rulers, authority, dominions, and powers of this present age.
Yeah.
And he has something in mind there that's different from the demon that, was afflicting somebody that maybe, Jesus comes and encounters.
Right.
Or the spiritual warfare kind of motif that I have been thinking of.
Right. There's a few of those that
upbringing.
will be fun to that I just popped into my head for next week that are very interesting.
Yes. So
what's interesting about this is when Gombas talks about, how does he put it? That we've had our imaginations captured, or is that how he phrased it?
Yeah, our imaginations have been held captive.
Yes. It's amazing how much imagination is required for this because of, or maybe imagination is the wrong word, but it's just everything that we grew with and have has been so sterilized.
Right.
That the wonder of this preface that you just introduced, right? If we can call it a preface to the whole thing, it's been so sterilized that the wonder of it is shocking, for lack of a better term. But it requires so much discipline because when we do invoke our imaginations, we've often gone haywire with
totally
the image. You know what I mean? So it's like the error on both ends is pretty wild. Like you get the Da Vinci Code versus you have woman snake or whatever.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's just like we have to tame our wonder in an interesting way to really encounter what this stuff is.
Because as interesting as this is, like the Bible is so sober about it. It doesn't encourage speculation.
Yeah.
Like there's literature in Second Temple Judaism, like First Enoch, Jubilees, some of those sort of apocryphal books go into great detail about who these beings are, what their names are, how many of them are, how many of them there are, and the the Bible just doesn't do that. It just drops these pieces in where you're like, oh, and when you are looking at other ancient Near Eastern understandings of the world, it totally fits. Like, this is not an uncommon way to have seen the world. There are differences, though, and that's where, like, monotheism, it does exist. This is not saying there are many gods.
Right.
Not at all. The Elohim are created beings.
Right.
God, who is a part of the class of Elohim, is not. And that's why he is given the title God, and a name, and the name that is above every name, and then he shares that with Christ in the New Testament, so that Christ has been exalted above these powers. And then the way Paul construes the powers and how they operate now, that's where Gombis has been really helpful, because it's not the encouragement isn't in idle speculation about, because you can take this stuff and run with it. And I've read fictional accounts of the Watchers and the Nephilim Chronicles, and you're just like, no, that's not the point of this. The point is that there are these parallel things that are happening in the heavens and on the earth. Mm-hmm. And there's a fall in the heavens and there's a fall on the earth. There are rulers in the heavens and there are rulers in the earth. Mm-hmm. And there are places where these things overlap.
Yeah.
And so, they'll pop up in the middle of the book of Daniel when an angel is like, dude, I had to go to war against the Prince of Persia, to just freaking come and answer you. And you're like, what? Are you serious? But that's a reference to Deuteronomy 32, which is a reference to Deuteronomy 4, which is a reference to Genesis 1 and the lights, right? And you're just like, oh, okay. So you're right. We can speculate, but the deeper I dive into the scriptures, the more you realize, wow, this is an articulate, coherent story. Whether or not you buy it is a different question.
Totally.
It just hasn't been told well recently.
Yes, totally.
And if you don't buy it, that's fine. I can understand. I can totally understand why you wouldn't buy it. I because of Jesus, I buy. I don't know that I buy that the earth is resting on the waters. I don't buy that, but I buy that God used, in the same way he uses my accommodated and compromised worldview.
Yep. Yes.
He can use theirs too, and he doesn't have to correct it in order to make the point.
Yes, absolutely. I think, what's so much fun for me, and I mentioned this with the problem of evil stuff last week, and then for this, it's like this narrative of the heaven and the earth overlap, the separation and the goal to reunify that lineage. This all jives so perfect with all
That's
of that.
Right. That's
so
right.
So it's like when people have struggled with Old Testament and trying to find relevance in New Testament or relevance to today with Old Testament stuff, or like this was just the part, like the angry God versus the loving Jesus, and all, but everything helps for me make everything cohesive. I'm like, oh, I see this. I see this journey. I see this plan. The vocation stuff makes perfect sense. Like us trying to achieve that vocation now as being part of what we do is trying to live in this new creation, et cetera, et cetera. It all makes sense. Right.
Yes. And that's why there will be a new heavens and a new earth. Both are corrupted. Salvation isn't just individual human. It's and Paul will say he's going to reconcile everything, even on the heavens, on the earth, and in the earth below.
I got goosebumps because that's like I don't know what that means, but I
don't know either.
It's so fascinating.
But that's how big salvation is.
Yes, totally. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because the problem's that big. The problem isn't just that I lusted yesterday and have greed in my heart.
Right.
That's a symptom.
Yes.
And And it is part of the problem, but the problem is just so much bigger than that. It's because of those things, and because I was born where all of that's considered normal, that I am enslaved and don't even feel enslaved. But I'm enslaved because the minute you hurt me, I want to hurt you back. That is automatic reflex.
Hurt people.
Yep. You do not have to teach me how to be selfish. I know that. You have to teach me how to be thankful, right? That's a different thing.
That's why that's interesting with the sins of the father being carried down and just these generational cycles that we lock. We're born. That makes sense for being like, you are born into sin, and which used to be put through in the idea of way someone like, our favorite pastor would say, with God hating you because you're filthy and dirty and yada, yada, yada. Right. But this idea of being born into these cycles that consume.
That's right.
Is fascinating.
It is. And that we perpetuate them and are victimized by them.
Yes.
At the same time.
Yep.
None of us
analogy.
Yes, exactly. The whole carbon footprint thing, that's true. That's a great picture of sin.
Yeah.
Right? My life emits sin.
Yeah.
It just does.
And then it affects me in turn. It infects me, and
Yes. And causes you then to emit. And so it's this cosmic web.
Yeah.
Of just carnage. And then you realize, okay, that's what Jesus is coming to deal with.
Yep.
And
love it.
And if you're gonna have a new heavens and new earth, it has to be dealt with. And then it has to go, old creation has to go somewhere. And so whether that's destruction outside the city, who knows? The dynamics of heaven and hell are already at work in the world. Absolutely. Right? Jesus introduces us to that in his prayer, in the Lord's Prayer. Yeah. The dynamics of heaven are at work already here. Likewise, the dynamics of hell. James tells us that.
Yep.
Right? So you can call them old creation, new creation. Absolutely. Or you call them heaven and hell. Now, that's not all they are.
Right.
Right?
But
they're not just
really
dynamics.
Helps to understand. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Jesus is warning against something.
Yeah.
And talking about a hope for something.
Yeah.
But man, I just think it's so all we're doing, and who knows, this could be just freaking wrong. You have to take our words. The reason I'm telling you who I'm channeling, so that you can read their work or read people who object to their work.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, as the layers. So you start with N.T. Wright in Surprised by Hope, and he says, hey, the Christian hope isn't heaven, it's new creation. Heaven is the first stop in a round trip journey.
Yes.
You start there, and then you say, oh my goodness, well, that parallels Genesis 1 and 2, right? Which is, and the vocation there shows up in the vocational aspects of Revelation as well. Well, what else shows up? Well, Eden, there are these echoes of Eden, and then you've got some sort of weird dynamic happening outside the city. Yeah, absolutely. But you begin to peel that back. Well, then how does the crucifixion and resurrection and life of Jesus, why is it needed now? If the goal isn't just heaven and the stamp of, hey, you got Jesus's righteousness and Jesus got your sin. If it's not needed for that, then what else is it doing?
Yep.
And so you just keep peeling back these layers to the story, and you're just going, oh my goodness, and this means prayer is different than what I thought, and this is why, you know what I mean?
Yes, I was having this conversation yesterday where I talking about what is ministry, because ministry has been built on this idea of saving people.
Right.
But, so ministry instead becomes something else about helping illuminate people out of these cycles to embrace new creation. So it changes, like the idea.
And does that save them? Yes, but
but not in the way that we've grown
Yes.
with. So it's like something like a revival, or these mass things where you're just like, do this thing to try to get a bunch of people to say this little whatever, and then, how many did we save today? We saved it.
Right,
But
right.
living it like Gamas has been saying forever, and being invested in your small community, and
Right.
and having an effect on the little larger community around you or whatever, that makes sense, because you're trying to foster communities and lives that are embracing this new creation, or pushing forward to it, and then being that vocation of bringing that new creation or the understanding of it or whatever. I'm processing out loud, but
Yes.
it reframes all. And so the question last week with worship, I don't know the answer to it still, but the reframing of it is an interesting thing to tackle. The reframing of ministry, the reframing of Sunday morning,
Totally.
the reframing of prayer, the reframing of
Yeah.
all of it.
Yeah. And that's, and again, I mean, I don't know, man. It
The reframing of the
find this-
reconstruction question from the beginning of this episode. What does reconstruction mean?
totally. And it's just repentance. It's just, okay.
Repentance makes more sense. The term, the definition of repentance, like turning away and reposturing.
And returning home. Yes.
Yes, that makes more sense. The definition of that word and that idea makes more sense in this conversation.
Why do I, I want to put off the old creation dynamics of sex and exploitation and lust, and I want to embrace new creation dynamics.
You're going to turn away from that and...
Yes. All right. Well, we went an hour and a damn half.
Well, you know what? Who cares? Well, last week when I talked about a mission statement that was fostering wonder and awe, and this does exactly that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I hope so. It does in me.
It
for
does
sure.
in me. So
And
goal
as
achieved in
I've-
this phone call.
So anyway, my friends, all right, we're done. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. And may the Lord turn his face towards you and give us peace in these days. Amen.
Amen.
Until next time, friends. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this conversation. The Vox Podcast is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is supported by listeners like yourself. If you'd like to partner with us, you can do so at patreon.com/Vox Podcast. You can also engage with the hosts on social media at facebook.com/Vox Podcast, on Instagram at Vox Podcast, and on Twitter at Mike Erie. Thank you for walking this road with us.